In this video, I'll show you my 10 favorite trading tools that I use every single day. I will show you exactly how to set up your charts. I have a lot of practical tips and tricks for you on how to approach your charting every day a little bit more efficient, and also a few secrets that you probably have not heard about yet. So let's get into the charts. I love using moving averages. I use them every single day, and I love to use moving averages from different time frames. And there's a very cool trick in TradingView on how to do that very effectively. So we go to the indicators, and you just have to type in MA or moving average, and then you will see you can choose between the regular one or the exponential. We click on it, and now we have our regular moving average. You can see when we zoom in, here's the blue line. And when we open the settings, first of all, obviously under inputs, you can change how long do you want it, 21 period. And also let's make it a little bit bigger under style. You can see here's the thickness, you can change the color. But the really cool thing is under inputs, when you go to the time frame, now we can choose what moving average time frame we want to see. For example, let's assume we are a day trader and we trade maybe at a 15-minute, but we want to make sure that we respect our daily moving average. So under time frame, we go to 1 day. And when we now go to, let's say, the 15-minute here, now we still have the daily 50 period moving average on our chart. So when we zoom out, you can see the blue line is now the moving average that comes from the daily time frame. So this is a really helpful feature. And if you're using multi-time frame analysis, but maybe you want to make sure you don't forget to check your higher time frame situation, then this is a very easy way to bring the higher time frame into your lower time frame. And obviously you can change that to any time frame that you want. If you want to have the 4 hour, no problem as well. By the way, if you want to quickly copy a moving average, you just go here and under the 3 dots, you go to copy, and then on your keyboard, you just press Control and V, and then you have here the second option. You have now a duplicate, and now, for example, we can have the daily period moving average and the 4 hour here right together. If you want to undo something, you just hold Control and Z, and then it is gone. And that is a very helpful way of how I use moving averages in my trading. Next, I love using the pivot points, and I recently made a few videos about pivot point strategies, and there were a lot of questions. And let me show you how to set this up. So under indicator, we can simply type in pivot. And then here we have the pivot point standard. That's the one that I use. By the way, if you want to use this more often, you can just go to the star and click it, and you can see this is now added to favorites. So what does it do? When we now open the indicators again, you can see here's the favorites, and now here are all the ones that have a star, and here is also the pivot point standard. So we click on pivot point standard, and you can see now we have our pivot points. However, I only use the central pivot point. So we go to here our settings at the top left. And first I just untick all the S and R one because I don't use them in my trading. I only want to have the central, and I'm going to make it maybe black. You can also maybe make it a little bit wider so that it stands out a little bit better. And then under pivot time frame, you can choose between the daily, weekly, monthly. So what I do is, if I'm on the lower time frame, such as the 15-minute or the 30-minute, I will have the daily pivot points, and they are more suited for day traders. But if you are maybe, let's just say, on the 1 hour, the 2 hour, the 4 hour, then you want to make sure that you have the weekly pivot points. And now you can see we have the central pivot point. By the way, if you want to do some back testing and you are suddenly experiencing that the pivot points stop and they don't go back far enough, there's a very easy solution. And you open the settings, and then under number of pivots back, you can just add whatever you want. You can go to a very high number, and then you have that problem fixed, and now the pivots stretch back for a long time. I love using Trendlines, and I use them many times every single day. And in TradingView, that's very simple. Here on the left, you can see you have the different menu icons. And here under Trendline tools, you click on this little arrow, and then you can already see under the first spot, here's the trend line. And now it is active, and we can start drawing it. So there are a few cool things about trend lines in TradingView. First of all, you can double click it, and then you get to the settings. If you just right click it, and then you can go to the settings as well. And what I do is I tick those off so they don't infinitely extend left and right. And that is my settings that I use. You can obviously also add the angle if you want to have that. You can have a price range, which is maybe interesting, a bar range, how long is the trend line. And what you can also do is you can make a description. So for example, if you want to keep in mind that this is the higher time frame daily trend line, you can write it in here. And then you can see, if we make it a little bit bigger, here is now the text, and you can very nicely design your trend lines or your charts and make sure you don't forget what this trend line is about and why did you have it. Another very helpful feature for trend lines is that you can create an alert on a trend line. So if we select the trend line, you can see now here you have this add alert function, and you can just click on it, and then you have all the options that you have for alerts. You can choose and set this up how you want it. You can choose the condition and change it. You can say how often or when should the alarm be triggered. You can even make sure that you get an email notification on an app. You can rename the alert so that maybe on an app on your phone you will right away know what it's all about. And then you can set your alert, and then it is done. It will show up in your alerts, and also you can see here's this little alarm icon. So there are lots of cool things that you can do with trend lines, and I love the trading view feature. One thing that I use all the time is the reward to risk ratio tool. Let me show you how to use it. So here in this menu point here on the left, you have a few options, and you can see they are already favorited. And I will show you why it is important to have a favorite menu bar in a moment. So let's assume we want to estimate a potential trade idea. Let's assume we want to see, is there enough reward and how does it look? So we click on the long, and now when we go, for example, to current price action, you can see we get this. And this is a very, very nice way of how you could map out your potential trade in advance and just learn about it a little bit. So what this means is that here is your potential entry where the baseline is or the midline, and the red line symbolizes your stop loss distance. Where would you put your stop loss? Maybe you would say, okay, I would put my stop loss underneath the previous low, so maybe around here. And what is a realistic and potential target? Maybe the previous highs, but maybe not all the way here, but a little bit below that. So we would move our target, potential target here. And now when we zoom in, you can see TradingView gives you the reward to risk ratio. So in this case, it's a 6.57 reward to risk ratio. It's a very, very important metric to know in your trading so that you can estimate, is the trade worth the risk? Is there enough upside potential? And you could say, okay, maybe it is likely that the market will bounce maybe somewhere here or here. So what is the potential profit maybe for here? And you can see it is 2.78. And then you can estimate and make some risk assessments here if this trade is worth taking. There are some nice features about this tool, and let me show you that. So we click on it, and then again we can right click and then go to settings. And then here under style, you have, for example, the option to always show the statistics. So let's turn that on. And then you can see when we now click away, this always stays on your charts. It doesn't go away because the normal way it is set up is this is ticked off. And then as soon as you click somewhere else, then you don't know anymore what the reward to risk ratio is. So this is a way of how you can change the visualization. It works exactly the same way with short positions, just in reverse. The stop loss portion is now above this middle level, and the potential target is now to the downside. So that is a very nice way. I use it a lot to just understand what is the potential profit potential, is there enough upside for the risk, and so on and so forth. By the way, there's a very easy and nice way to clean your charts in TradingView. You don't have to select every little thing that you drew on your charts. You can just right click and then here remove drawings. If you have active indicators, then this would become active, and you can just with one click remove everything. So when we click on remove drawings, this should all disappear, and that is then gone. So Control and Z brings it all back. It means that it is the undo button, and that is how you can manage it. If you want to just temporarily hide it, you can use this icon here, this eye icon, and then you can see it is all gone, and then you can bring it back. When this is hidden, as soon as you start drawing, everything else comes back. One thing that I use every single day a lot, and it helps me to stay on top of my charting, is TradingView's Watchlist feature. So here at the top right, you can see when we hover over it, it says Watchlist and details. And here are all the Forex pairs that I am keeping an eye on. But when you open this for the first time, there won't be anything. So what you have to do is here go to this drop down, and then you want to create a new list. For example, you want to call it Forex, but because we're making YouTube, we want to name it Forex YouTube. And then you have an empty list. So you can add new Forex pairs or any market for that matter when you click on the add symbol, and then you just type it away. We want to have the Euro US dollar. You have it here. You can obviously mix them. Maybe you want to have also Apple. Then you can do that as well. And so you can build a very nice watch list and make sure that you have all the markets that you want to keep an eye on. There's some really interesting features. So let's assume this is our watch list. Those are all the markets that we are taking care of and that we are watching on a daily basis. But we are obviously not going to trade all of them. Maybe we do our morning check every single morning and we select a few candidates that are interesting for that day, and then we flag them. So when you hover over a row, you can see at the beginning there is this grayed out flag. And when you click on it, it becomes a color. And you can choose the color. You have a few options here, and you can use the colors to maybe have a color scheme for different things that you want to keep track of. Maybe it's different for the higher time frame, the lower time frame, you want to separate that. Maybe you want to have green or red for is it a go or is it not a go? Maybe yellow for intermediate, is it in between generating a trading signal? And then one thing that you can do is when you go over here over Forex, you open it and then you can see you have different lists. You have a red list, blue list, purple list. So all the ones that have a blue flag are then listed here. That's a very nice way of just improving your workflow every day and making everything a little bit more streamlined. If you want to get rid of all the flags, what I do every morning is I right click and then I just go to unflag all symbols in the system. And then you get asked, do you really want to unflag everything? And then everything is gone. One really nice thing that helps me a lot is how I do my watch list. I select the first one, Aussie Cat, and then I just use the key icons or the arrow icons on my keyboard. And then you can just click on arrow down and then it will jump through the watch list and select the next pair and get you to it. You see that I have set up this bar here, and I find this very helpful because it allows me to save a lot of time. So this is, I call it the quick menu. There's probably an official TradingView name, but basically how it works, you can select tools, drawing tools, things that you maybe use on a regular basis, and you can bring them right on your charts. So how you do it is you first have to go to the menu and find the one that you want to use. For example, let's assume we want to have the ray. Then you can see whenever you hover over a line or an icon, then an item, then you get this star, and by default the star is empty. But as soon as you tick it, the item will move here to your bar. So when we click on ray, you can see now here is the ray, we can use it, and it is now always on our charts. And this is just very helpful. You can see I have the trend line, I have Fibonacci's, I have a vertical line, a horizontal line, a rectangle tool. You have your regular brush and drawing tool, you have your long and short. I have an arrow, the head and shoulders, which I find is just very nice because I trade head and shoulders quite a bit and I want to keep track of them. Here is a new path tool, which I find really interesting that TradingView added it. So you can very nicely create this path here. And then when you double click, you are out of the path. And those are most of the tools that I use. You can get rid of it, so we don't need the ray, so we can get rid of the ray and then it is gone. You can move the bar around and it is very, very helpful. I use it quite a lot. Finally, I just want to show you a few tips on how to adjust and customize your indicators on TradingView. So we are now on the 1 hour chart, and when we go to indicator, we can type in any indicator. For example, we want to have the RSI, and then here is the RSI and it will populate at the bottom. And I find that I always go into the settings here on this settings icon, and then what I typically do, I just deactivate everything that I don't really need. And usually, because I find it's too thin by default, I make the lines a little bit thicker. And again, under input, you can change the time frame. So we are on the 1 hour chart and we will get the 1 hour RSI. But what if you want to have the 4 hour RSI? You can go to time frame and change it to 4 hour. And this is now the RSI or how it would look on the 4 hour, but on your lower time frames. And if you go, for example, now to the 15 minute, or to the 30-minute, the RSI will always look the same. That's really, really helpful, what I found. You can add an indicator to an indicator, which I find is quite interesting. So for example, let's assume we want to add the moving average to our indicator. So we can go here. First of all, we go to this triple dots, and then we select add indicator to the RSI, and then we get the same pop-up. We can choose our moving average, and then you have your moving average on the RSI. And for example, maybe you want to see when is the RSI above its previous historical average, when is it below it, and when does it change. That could be a very meaningful signal. By the way, you could just choose the vertical line here, and then for example we mark here the crossover, and that is then also a very nice way of visualizing important things, and I often use that in my backtesting as well. So when I want to see okay, what happened, or how does the chart look when it crossed here, 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 and here, then I just use the vertical tool, and then it helps me to look at my charts a little bit in a different way. And then this is how you can improve your workflow or just customize your experience.